Hello, welcome to Chapter 2, Homework Questions 82 through 86. Question 82. The point 21, 32 is on a line with a slope of 1.5. Part A, find the equation of the line. Well, we're given the point 21, 32, so remember that represents x, y as an ordered pair, and then the slope of 1.5. So we can use our equation y equals mx plus b, plug in the three variables that we know. 32 equals 1.5 times 21 plus b, and then we can solve for b. 32 equals 31.5 when you multiply 21 times 1.5. Subtract 31.5 from 32, and you get 0.5. So for part A, to write the equation, we would have y equals 1.5x plus the y-intercept of 0.5. Part B, find the coordinates of another point on the line. Now that we have the equation, we can plug in any value for x that we want and solve for y. I would say a pretty easy one to plug in for x would be 0. And that means y would be equal to 0.5. So we know 0, 0.5 would be one of the points, which we knew anyways because it was the y-intercept. But there's lots of different numbers you could plug in. You could plug in 2, just to kind of show you a different one. If we plug in 2 for x, that'll give us 3 plus 0.5. So 3.5, which means when x is 2, y is 3.5. So lots of possibilities there in terms of plugging values in and finding another point on the line. There's infinite number of points. Question 83, we're going to complete the diamond problems below. Remember that you multiply x and y to get the top and you add to get the bottom number. So in this one, what number times -1 would give us positive 10? That would be -10 times -1. Oh wait, hold on. Let's go back. That's the addition part of it, so let's try that again. 11 plus -1 would be 10, and then 11 times -1 would be a -11. On part B, 5 times, so here's our multiplication. 5 times -3 is -15, and if I add those two numbers, I get 2. On the next one, what times 2/3 is going to give us 1? And you might know what that is. I'm going to set up an equation on this one so you can see. 2/3 times what is equal to 1. If we solve by multiplying by the reciprocal 3/2, we see that y would be equal to 3/2, which if you take a number times its reciprocal, you get the product to equal 1. If I add those two numbers together, I'm going to have to do a little bit of work here because I do want to find a common denominator, which would be 6. So that would be 4/6 plus 9/6, which would be 13/6. And then on the last one, now we're trying to find two numbers that add to give you -5, but multiply to give you -14. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to give you -14, but add to give you a -5. So what numbers multiply to give you 14? You have 7 and 2, one of those being a negative. And then you also have the possibility of 1 and 14, one of those being a negative. So which set would add to give you a -5? And that would be -7 plus 2 would be -5. So it doesn't matter which one represents x and y. I'll put the -7 here and the positive 2, but either way it's going to multiply to give you -14 and add to give you -5. Question 84, the graph of the equation 2x minus 3y equals 7 is a line. Find the x and the y-intercepts and graph the line using these 2 points. So to find the x-intercept, we know that the y value is 0, so we can plug in 0 for y and solve for x. When we divide by 2, we get 3.5, so the x-intercept is 3.5, 0. So in between 0 and 4. And then to find the y-intercept, we're looking for when x is 0. And that would be 2 times 0 minus 3y equals 7. So negative 3y equals 7, divide by 3, and you're going to get negative 7 thirds. And so 0 comma negative 7 thirds, that's approximately, try to write my 3 a little bit better. Approximately negative 2 and 1/3, or it is negative 2 and 1/3. So we'll try to graph that the best we can. It'll be a little hard there because it's not intersecting exactly. So those 2 points, wants us to graph using those two. Make sure you use a straight edge to get a nice line. And there that is. For part B, if a point on this line has a x-coordinate of 10, what is its y-coordinate? So we'll do a little math here. X-coordinate is 10, so we're going to do 2 times 10 minus 3y equals 7. So 20 minus 3y equals 7. We're going to solve for y, so we need to subtract the 20. That'll leave us with negative 13, and when you divide by negative 3, that's positive 13 over 3. So it just says what is the y-coordinate, so the y-coordinate is 13 over 3. Question 85, without graphing, identify the slope and the y-intercept of each equation below. So in part A, the slope is 3, and the y-intercept is 0.5. Remember, the coefficient of x represents the slope, and the constant is your y-intercept. On B, you don't see the y-intercept because it's plus 0, but it still is there. Your slope is negative 5/4, and your y-intercept is the origin 0, 0. On this equation on C, you don't see the x, and the reason you don't see the x is because it's 0 times x. So your slope still does exist, it's 0, and your y-intercept is 0, 3. And then on D, don't get this confused because of the way it's written. It's y equals 4x plus 7, and the order doesn't really matter, but m is still, or the slope is still the coefficient of x, and the y-intercept is still the constant of the equation. Question 86, graph the line y equals negative 2/3 x plus 3. So we're going to graph this using the slope negative 2/3 and the y-intercept at 0, 3. Plot the y-intercept first. Your line should be decreasing because of the negative slope, so I'm going to go down 2 and to the right 3. So down 2 is a negative 2, to the right 3 is positive. So we can do that a couple of times to get a couple points. If you go in the other direction and you want to go up 2, to the left 3, that's fine. This would be a positive 2, and to the left would be a negative 3. So it still represents a negative slope. And once again, for you, make sure you use a straight edge. And there's the equation, or there's the graph, sorry, of the line negative 2/3 x plus 3.